Okay, let's go. We've got an interview now with one of the organizers behind that ceasefire write-in campaign. This will make it so that we've gotten every single person technically on the ballot
right.
in the state of New Hampshire, except for President Biden.
But he's not on the ballot. So
there you go. There you go. I didn't even think about that. We have, he's been invited.
Got it covered.
It's been turned down, so it is what it is. Okay, let's move on. Joining us now is Andrew Volinsky. He is a organizer and former let me get this correctly, former executive counselor in New Hampshire, and he is an organizer in the write-in ceasefire campaign. Andrew, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Andrew, you sent us a picture of your ballot. We're going to edit it and put it up on the screen. You have written in ceasefire there, and you've been an organizer in kind of this last-minute movement. Give us some of the reasoning behind wanting folks to write in ceasefire on the New Hampshire ballot as opposed to rallying around a different candidate.
Well, in New Hampshire, first in the primary means first in the nation primary means that we have a great deal of responsibility to make our concerns known, and our vote is our agency. I watched on October 7th as the attack happened and hostages were taken in horror. And then I kept watching in November and December, and I saw the Israeli siege of Gaza, the destruction of the healthcare system, the apparently indiscriminate bombing of non-combatants, and not enough response from the Biden administration. Mm-hmm. And so in the middle of December, I penned a letter to the editor telling everyone that I was going to write the words ceasefire on my ballot. That's where it started. About 10 days ago, other people started reaching out to me. And now this effort has taken off with coverage on shows like yours, press coverage and Politico, Nation, HuffPost, Al Jazeera, Haaretz, the Boston Globe. It's really gotten a bit of a life of its own, and we hope to send a message to the president about our concerns, in particular the violence that's happening perpetrated by the Netanyahu government.
In the time between your letter to the editor being published and, say, 10 days ago when you started to get some modest financial support from around the country to actually turn this into a real campaign, how much traction had it gotten just kind of virally, grassroots, word of mouth wise in those couple of weeks? Or are we really only looking at the last 10 days as a serious effort?
So I have a decent following here in New Hampshire. And so there was response by, I would say, the people most interested in social justice issues in our state, and some rather colorful responses complaining about my letter. Were anatomically incorrect, but picked up really, and this isn't just the influence of other people. In New Hampshire's primary, focus really grows in that last week to 10 days and builds right through to the primary. So the idea that it was somewhat limited and then exploded isn't that unusual here.
Now, you recently had the Secretary of State announce that they actually would be tallying, the number of people who wrote in ceasefire. You've also had a super PAC called Democratic Majority for Israel has written to the Secretary of State, kind of urging them to reverse that decision. So where does that stand? When will we learn how many people wrote in ceasefire?
So I spoke directly to the Secretary yesterday, late morning. He told me that all the write-in votes would be counted, and that he was intending to report both the Biden write-ins and the ceasefire write-ins. Ceasefire doesn't have 1.2 million in a PAC behind it. Last night sometime, a pro-Israel PAC wrote to the Secretary complaining that it was illegal to report the ceasefire results. I disagree with their analysis. I've done election law in New Hampshire for the last 25 years. I don't think they have a leg to stand on, but there's been no announcement by the secretary that he's going to change his position. And I expect later this evening, after the polls close, the secretary will announce the ceasefire write-in votes.
Andrew, while we have you, it's the day of the election and all of that. Just what's the feeling? You know, you were elected in the state of New Hampshire. What is the feeling there of being bypassed by the Biden White House, or by the DNC, by Biden, and this current now effort to do a write-in campaign for Biden? How does that make people feel, voters there?
Well, I understand the arguments that a more diverse state should go first. But someone at the DNC should have looked at our laws. We have a particular statute that says New Hampshire has to hold its primary 7 days before the next primary. Caucuses don't count. The Democratic Party lost the governor's race, the state house, and the state Senate. So it's all Republican controlled. There was zero chance that the Republican-controlled legislature was going to repeal that statute to accommodate the DNC. It was probably one of the dumber moves I've seen for the DNC to change the order, not recognizing that the Secretary of the State was legally bound to hold the primary when he's holding it. So it's been an odd primary. You've got this supposed small-time grassroots effort to write in the president, and then Washington Post yesterday reported it's backed by 1.2 million in a PAC. You have Republicans dropping in and dropping out almost by the minute. So now that it's a Haley and Trump race, our very popular governor backing Haley. We'll see how that works out. You have two unknowns running as Democrats, Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson. There's also an interesting comedian named Vermin Supreme.
Okay,
on the ballot.
Don't want to erase him.
And Vermin Supreme's goal is to beat Dean Phillips. So it's there you have it.
What's your sense of where the ceasefire votes are going to come from? Are they pulling from Vermin Supreme? Are they pulling from Biden, Marianne, Dean? Why not endorse a candidate who's for a ceasefire? What was your thinking there? And what's your go ahead, and I have a follow-up.
That was intentional. I am not interested in replacing Joe Biden. I didn't want to support a person who would then be a threat to the president in the November election. I wanted him to do better by recognizing the importance of this issue in the one way that he seems to pay attention, which is to the vote. So if we get people to go out and actually mark their ballots with a vote, we're in a position where President Biden can veto UN resolutions, but he can't veto the vote. Yeah. And this effort has grown. There are another 10 or 15 states now looking at repeating this effort of writing in ceasefire instead of backing a third-party candidate or a farm team candidate like Phillips and Williamson.
Interesting.
What's your number in your mind as the votes are counted that would be a success for you and that would land, for the president?
It's not a specific number. So part of it starts with the coverage we're currently receiving across the nation in a big way. Turnout is supposed to be high on the Republican side. It's not clear to me that it will be as high. It likely won't be as high on the Democratic side. So getting a number of votes, enough that show up, that make a difference, I'll be happy with that. But quite frankly, given all of the attention that's been paid to this and people now talking ceasefire, why isn't the president doing more? We've already won.
What kind of blowback have you gotten from other Democrats over this? Because I've heard people complain that this is going to give people the idea in November that they should do this. So have you heard that from people, and what have you heard?
Yeah, so I'm being called an anti-Semitic bigot a lot, which is kind of amusing because I'm a former synagogue Sunday school teacher, and my wife was president of our synagogue. So it just shows you how quickly and how crass people become. The organized Democratic leadership in our state has put out all kinds of rumors that the votes won't be counted, that we have a couple of special elections in addition to the primary, that those votes won't be counted. None of that is true. The votes will be counted, and ceasefire has no impact on the local elections. We've heard stories about how this is going to keep poll workers late into the night. I talked to the secretary and he said, no, we count write-ins in the usual course. This isn't that big a deal. It's basically a one-position race today. And we'll get the votes out and we'll tally them and we'll report them this evening.
Very, very interesting stuff, sir. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll be watching the results tonight. So thank you very much.
Hey, shout out to the Capitol Police for their January 6th efforts.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.